this is 100% key into everything that I've learned in the past 10 years. And that is, you can't just perform the same thing or be the same person or character throughout your career. This is probably the most realist thing I'm probably going to say. And a lot of musicians would agree with me. Maybe a lot would disagree with me here. Yes. Let me move this forward. Oh, and we are live, people. Yes, everyone. Welcome back to the Ricky2ra Podcast, episode, I want to say 83. I hope I've got that right. But we're in the 80s in the podcast episode. So yeah, I appreciate each and every single one of you who listen and watch this every single week. This is something that, I'm not going to lie, I'm finding a little bit harder to fit in my schedule at this moment in time. If you don't know why, check out my other episodes right at the end. But, you know, we always find time for stuff that we like. And here we are again, people. So I don't want to keep you here too long for the intro. As you can tell by the title, this is another special episode for myself. Because I'm talking about my experiences again. You know, this is why it's called the Ricky2ra Podcast. So, yes. What have I learned? Or what I've learned doing magic for over 10 years. And if you didn't know, I'm just going to recap on the origin story. I'm going to give you the short version. It was back in 2011. I watched Dynamo Magician Impossible accidentally on TV. It was just there. And it was a scene where he was there with a celebrity. They were sat down. It looked like a cafe. Or even like a little library room, something like that. And he had a butterfly. Well, it was a fake butterfly. And he held it in her hand. And what Dynamo did was cover it. And he opened his hand over her hand. And the butterfly flew away. He had turned a little toy butterfly into a real butterfly. Next thing you know, the room's full of butterflies. And I was like, oh my God. And then later on in the episode, I started doing street magic, walking on water, doing an absolute madness. And I got hooked in July 2011, people. And the rest is history. That's how your boy kind of got started into magic. And yeah, that's over 10 years ago. We are here in 2024, but it just shows you that it's been a long time. It's been 13 years. 13 years since, nearly 13 years since that day where he basically changed my life. And I started doing self-working tricks, got from there, started forming family, at events, etc. And I'm going to just give you a few little pointers on what I have learned during this 10-year plus experience, you can say. I just want to start off with the first point. I want to just say it straight to you. You know, it takes a lot of patience, this magic game. I was 13 at the time, and I wanted to be exactly like Dynamo. And don't get me wrong, I still do, but I've matured over the years, and I've started to realise how real life is the older you get. And back then, a 13-year-old Ricky wanted to be exactly like Dynamo. I wanted a TV show, and I wanted to perform exactly like he did. And I felt a little bit more closer to Dynamo because he was only from Bradford, and I'm in Leeds. So Leeds and Bradford are right next door to each other. So the point I'm saying is patience, meaning here we are 10 years later. You know, I am 26 years old now, and you know, looking back at that 13-year-old Ricky, I'd just say be patient, lad, and keep going. And I still am going. You know, this whole game of wanting to be famous, you know, doing magic and stuff, I feel like at the start you probably want to. But over the years, what I've experienced is it's not actually about getting famous, because you can be famous from anything these days, more these days than back then. But it's about perfecting your craft and mastering your craft. So that's where the patience come in, because nothing happens after 1 year, 2 years, 3. I'm over 10 years in deep, and I feel like I haven't mastered it. Like, I'm not 100% there yet. And if I'm saying that after 10 years, then you know what I mean. For people that are starting out, you shouldn't be looking at it like, oh my God, if Ricky's saying it's 10 years and I've just started, like, I can't be arsed. It shouldn't be like that. And there's this 10,000 hour rule. And I believe that's a perfect example of where patience come from, because if you're not putting close enough to 10,000 hours into something that you want to perfect in your craft, then you shouldn't really be doing it at all. Meaning, if you don't want to do it for the long term, it's not for you. So that's the first thing that I've learned for over 10 years in magic. It's a patience game. It's a long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I believe if you're in it for the long run, you are going to be successful, and success is different for everybody. And I don't mean you're going to become famous. I mean you will be successful in your own way, whatever that is to you. For myself, I still want to make 13-year-old Ricky happy. So maybe perhaps one day we could get a TV show. Back then it was TV. Now you've got online stuff, so YouTube's a great substitute for that. I believe the world works in beautiful ways, so you never know. But I still keep that promise to my younger self as well, even though there are a lot more responsibilities on my shoulders than 13-year-old Ricky. I still believe patience is key. Also, going on to patience, and I've talked about this in literally nearly every episode, so you've probably bored of me you're probably going to be bored at what I'm going to say next, but this is 100% key into everything that I've learned in the past 10 years, and that is practice, people. Practice. Like, oh my God, Ricky, you're still talking about practice? Yes, not even practice, like a lot of practice. It's a long game, like I said, but if you're not practicing, you're not really getting anywhere. It's kind of like a rapper, you're asking him to rap something and he's like, yeah, I've not really practice rapping. I'll just show you like the stuff that I learned about 5 years ago, and it's like, nah, man. And it's something that at this moment in time I'm still a bit 50-50 on, as I've got more responsibility, but that's no excuse. I've always got a pack of cards somewhere and I'm always trying to do something. So a lot of practice, it's like that 10,000 hour rule that I've been talking about. If you're not trying to get towards that, you're kind of taking yourself further. Or you're even stationary, meaning you're just still, you're not doing anything at all, and you're not going to get anywhere if you just stood still. So a lot of practice is what I've learned over the past 10 years. And I remember, the 13-year-old Ricky was always on YouTube wanting to learn something new and always wanted to perform for his family. Even Ricky from 5-6 years ago, I was always performing at gigs. I always wanted to perform for somebody new. So the key is practicing and performing, but practice is really key to any magician out there. And if you're staying consistent over the years, like I know over the past 10 years I have practiced, I've never skipped a year. You can't just do it and then just be like, okay, I'm going to take a year off or 2, 3, 4, 5 months off. It doesn't work like that. You've always got to stay consistent. Okay, fair enough, something could happen and you might take a day or two off. Life, like I said, life works in mysterious ways as well. So, but as long as you're there and you're staying consistent, at some point, it will build up, and you'll realise without even knowing that as the years go on, the better you'll get. A lot more people will start complimenting you, and they'll tell you whether you're good or bad, and you'll know. Like, I know a lot of people won't say you're bad, and I'm not saying whoever is watching or listening to this, you are bad. All I'm saying is that you'll kind of have a feeling like, even you'll deep down know yourself that, you've not put enough work in, and you can change that and you can turn that around. But what I'm saying is, you'll know if you put the work in or not, and that's why I'm saying if you put a lot of practice in, you will see and reap the rewards over time in that. And just a third point to this, this is a very interesting one, and looking back on it, it's quite funny for myself because I didn't realise this until I started to really look back. Because remember I was telling you about how I found Dynamo on TV, and I always wanted to be like Dynamo. I swear to God, like in the first, 2011, so in the first probably 4 to 5 years, I'd probably say 5 years, in the first 5 years of my magic career, or just becoming a magician, I was acting like Dynamo. So I was doing the Dynamo shuffle. It was at my gigs I was doing that as well, and I wanted to be like him, and there was nothing wrong with that, but I didn't really have Ricky's style, like the Ricky2ra style. I didn't really have my personality shine through, and it was something that I didn't really realise. It was something I loved doing, and it was something that I just did naturally because I watched Dynamo 24/7. And it wasn't until Charles, big up Charles from Bradford Magic Circle, he told me, drop the Dynamo shuffle because people are going to associate Dynamo with you and it won't really work as much because there'll be more on him than you. So until I stopped doing that and I started to have my personality shine through my performances, I actually started to give birth to a new style for myself. And it didn't happen overnight. It took a few years to go through after that. And I remember when I was performing at gigs, I started to have a little bit more of me shine through, talk a lot more to people, kind of explain things, perform magic, have a few like humour jokes here and there. Nothing like comedian style, but just my personality shining through. And the third point, or even the fourth point of this, what I'm talking about, is just finding your style over time. You won't find it straight away. And looking back on this 10 years, like I said, it took me a good 5-6 years to just break out of that Dynamo character that I was kind of performing with. So it doesn't happen over time. And I'm not saying it's going to take time for you. I'm just saying that for me, it took a while looking back on it without even realising. And it's so cool because when I look back on it, I was in my Dynamo era, and then I was in my like events era where I was doing events at Indian weddings, birthday parties and stuff, and I started to break out of that character, perform myself. I was Ricky the Magician. I was doing my own kind of like effects here and there, shining my personality come through, and now I feel like I'm slowly evolving into like the shop style now. And if you don't know about it, on my Instagram I've been posting a lot more magic videos of me in the shop, and I feel like it's just evolving over time. And what I've learned over these past 10 years is you've got to consistently keep reinventing yourself, meaning you can't just perform the same thing or be the same person or character throughout your career. And it's a bit confusing on that, so let me explain it a little bit. You can't just keep performing the same trick over and over again and keep expecting yourself to progress. Obviously that you'll get good reactions out of people, but it's kind of like a singer-songwriter performing the same song over and over again as the years go on, and over time people get bored of it. Yes, it could be a banger in the first year, and yes, people will still probably like it in the second year, but if you keep doing it in the third, fourth, fifth, 6th year, the same song, people can be like, well, he's doing the same thing. And that's the same for magicians. You've got to reinvent yourself, a few new effects, your style over time. Is it something with what you wear? Is it something with the cards? Is it something, a signature effect that you do? And for me, I really like the suits I was wearing. I used to change my colour of my suits. I wasn't normally in a black tuxedo unless it was a black tie event. I was always wearing very colourful suits. I was always being a bit more different in my performances, meaning I'd always try something that was a little bit out of my comfort zone, which worked well with my performances. And then slowly over time, I'm in a shop and I'm talking about magic, but obviously I'm doing magic with stuff in the shop as well. And I feel like I'm in that part of my life now, of reinventing myself again. And I'm sure maybe in the next 10 years we could be somewhere else. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. You've got to find your style over time. It doesn't come overnight, but as the years go on, what I've found is that you've got to consistently reinvent yourself. Now, this next point kind of contradicts a little bit of what I've just said, but you'll know what I mean when I say it. I've written, become a master of a few effects rather than just good of a lot of effects. Now, I just talked about how you've got to keep reinventing yourself. You can't be doing the same trick over and over again. But what I'm talking about with this point is you've got to at least have a good few effects that you're excellent, that you're a master of, that you can just do with a click of a finger, that there's no second thought, like it's just natural. You can just bust it out and you can do it clean, no flashes, nothing like that. That's what I mean. I mean something like that. And if you perform that so much that you can just do it, even if you haven't done it for like 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but you've just got it there in your muscle memory, that's what I mean. And you can overlay that with new effects over time. That's what I feel like I've learned over magic, because you've got to have something in your arsenal. You know, I know if a load of people come in here now, I know I've got like a good 6 to 8 effects that I can just do right now with a pack of playing cards, and I wouldn't have to second guess it. And if something happened, I'd know exactly what to do in that situation, because I've been in that situation so many times. And that's what I've learned. I've learned that you've got to, it goes back into the first 3 points of patience, practice and performing. You know, I talk about this all the time, but without them 3 you can't really do anything. And having your good set of magic effects is key to what you do, really. You've got to show something that, you know, on the spot, you know, even if you don't intend on performing. I talk about this deep in a few episodes back as well, if you're very interested in that. But I'm going to cut that short for that effect. You know, you'd rather be a master of a few than just good at a lot. You know, that can be anything in life as well. I've talked about reinventing yourself, but this next point is kind of for the older audience. You know, it counts for myself as well. Well, it can be for anybody really. But for myself, you know, I've realised the older I get, the more responsibility I have on my shoulders. Now, whoever's listening to this, no matter what age you are, I'm sure you have some sort of responsibility on your shoulders. So if you're just a kid, maybe you've got school, homework, stuff like that. If you're like a teenager, probably college, you know, maybe a relationship you're in, you know, something like that. Or maybe if you're like in your 20s, you know, university, you know, other stuff, coursework. Or if you're like me, late 20s, you know, could be jobs that you've got going on, running businesses, being entrepreneurial perhaps. It could be for anybody, right? But what I'm saying is, the more responsibilities in life, the more you've got to fit the magic in. So you can probably start off, and I'm sure a lot of magicians would agree with me here, that when you're younger, you're always doing magic, you're always learning, just absorbing. You're a sponge, you're just absorbing everything. But the older you get, the more stuff is starting to just go into your life, just blocks that are being built, and you're kind of trying to work your way around them blocks to practice your magic and do this and do that. And at some points you'll kind of hit that point of your life, and it's like, where am I going to fit this in, because I've got this and this and this. And I've written here, you know, if you love it, you'll fit it in. Meaning, you know, if you actually do want to do magic, you'll fit it into whatever. It doesn't matter whether you do it right early in the morning, or if you've got a lunch break and you just do it in there. You'll find some point, whether that's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever is good for you. Now, I know in this very busy schedule I've got going on now in the shop, I try to fit magic in wherever I can. And, you know, whether that's here in the shop where I'm doing videos, or whether that's in my bedroom where I'm practicing, where most magicians practice, or if you've got like a cool setup with in front of a mirror, you know, wherever, in an office or something like that. But what I'm saying is, you know, over time you'll start to realise, or what I've started to realise is, you've got to schedule a lot more things in, because if you don't, everything kind of gets muddled up and you don't know what to do. And possibly, I'm not saying that it's certain, but possibly you could lose that kind of time of, focusing on something you love or you're passionate about. You could slowly start to lose attention to that and kind of just get stuck into that sort of system where you're dealing with something, and perhaps it could lead to something perhaps you're missing in your life, or maybe not. I know that when I was doing a lot of stuff when I was, if back on my Where Have I Been episode, I was going through a few stuff there. If you're not seeing that episode out, it's episode 60. I was going through a few stuff there. I kind of didn't do magic for there, and it did feel like a little piece of me was missing. But as soon as I picked it back up, I scheduled it in, like I'm saying to you guys, schedule something in. As soon as I scheduled that in, it was something that kind of made me happy again and kind of like just lit the light bulb up again as well. So more responsibilities, but you'll fit it in. That's what I found anyway. This is a very cool one. Not even a cool one. I don't even know the word for it. This is probably the most realist thing I'm probably going to say, and a lot of magicians would agree with me. Maybe a lot would disagree with me here, but you'll get bored. You'll just get bored of it. Not of magic itself, like performing it possibly, and maybe practicing because you've done it so many times. But when you perform the same effect over and over and over again, and it kind of loses its magic with you, but you kind of transfer that magic onto someone else. I always say to myself, I remember when I was performing and I'm doing the same effect over and over again, and I kind of was so bored of it, but when I looked at the spectator, he or she was just absolutely amazed. So you get bored, but people still love it, and it's just like anything in life really. The more you do it, the more it's like, well, I know how to do it now, let's just do it. But it's kind of like the reward at the end of the day, that's still kind of that shine from the spectator or whoever you're performing to that keeps you going. So that's what I've learned. It's kind of like when you first do magic, it's kind of like, oh, am I going to do it right? Am I going to perform it right? And when you nail it, you're like, yes, in your mind, and the spectator's going crazy, like, oh, how'd you do that? You made my car appear somewhere and stuff like that. And you're like, yes, like, I've done that and stuff, when you kind of just, but like over time where you're just like doing it and it's like, yep, that's your card, boom. And they're like, what? And in your mind, you're like, like, yeah, still got it. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. And I've learnt that over time. It's kind of like you've got to stay professional, but at the same time you've got to kind of spice things up a little bit. You've got to practice something a little bit new, a little bit different as well, to kind of keep it going. Like I said, you've got to have the same effects that are kind of like in your arsenal, but you've got to have the new effects that kind of spice things up, that kind of like put a challenge on you to get out of your comfort zone as well. So yeah, that's what I've learned. It's a pretty funny one, because for us magicians, we're in that industry, in the entertainment industry, but it's so funny because in the entertainment industry you get bored, and it's funny because it's kind of like that's your thing, and you pass that on to other people as well. Let me know if you agree with me on that point. It could be a little bit controversial. Maybe magicians might like it and they love everything about it and they just can't stop entertaining people, and they love it themselves. I'm just saying from my point of view. And this is probably one of the most important ones that I'm ever going to say. Even if you got into magic, wanting to be a superstar, but over time, the older you get, it's kind of like, well, I love magic, but I don't really want to do it on the level which I thought I wanted to do when I was younger. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. This is just a point that I've kind of indulged in the past 3-4 years, and I'm not saying that it's true for me. I'm just saying I thought about this as well, and when I've looked back on it, I felt like there's nothing wrong with this point which I'm about to say. Even though you think you want to be a superstar, but over time you kind of like, you're okay, you're like, you know what, I don't really want to get to that point, but I still love doing magic. You'll always be the magic man in your family. Just let that sink in. Just because you've always performed magic for your family and your friends, you'll always be that guy. even, let's say you don't want to be quote unquote famous anymore. Do you know what I mean? It's I'm not trying to put anybody down or put myself down, but I have thought about it. I thought like, well, you know, if I didn't want to really like chase, you know, like the TV show and stuff, you know, I'll always be the magic man of the family. Like, they'll always be my family. Like, I'll always be at an family event, and it'll be like, oh, Ricky, have you got your cards on you? Do you know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. You know, I think that's just maturing and just getting a bit older over the years. Not in a bad way, but kind of just like developing over the years. You know, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And, you know, I don't mean to put anybody down. You know, you everybody has goals, different goals in their life. And I'm not saying that's my particular goal, this point, but I'm just saying it's something that I have thought of in the past as well. So yeah, you'll always be the magic man. It's not like if you don't want to chase that high point of being in the 1% of magicians, it doesn't mean that you have to stop. It just means that, you know, if you don't want to chase that anymore, you'll always have people there that know that you are the magic man. And yeah, these last couple of points I'm gonna put together, because I'm gonna end on these 2 points. Success isn't achieved overnight. I just want that to sink in. Success isn't achieved overnight. Look, everybody's different. Everybody has different highs and lows in their life. And I'm not saying I'm a success at this moment of time, but I'm not saying I'm a failure as well. What I'm saying is, you're not going to be like on top of the world in your first year in magic. It takes different times for different people. It could be the amount of work you put in could be a factor. It could be the amount of people you meet could be a factor as well. What I'm saying is that you've got to keep working hard at what you love doing, and you've got to keep going, performing, practicing consistently in order to kind of chase that success that you want, or even attract that success you want. So I'm not saying it'll take you 5 years, I'm not saying it'll take you 10 years, I'm not saying it'll take you 20 years. What I'm saying is, if you keep putting in the work, you will slowly start to reap the rewards in what you do. And for myself, you know, I'm going through this nice transition now of doing the podcast into the shop, a lot more magic in the shop. You'll see. But what I'm saying is that you've got to be patient, but you've got to keep going in order to kind of want to hit the level where you want to go. Yeah. I don't think I have anything else to say on that. I'm quite happy to end on that, people. But I hope that is of value to people as well. Please just remember, those are my opinions that I've just said. I feel like that's what I've learned over the past 10 years. If there's anybody out there, you know, you don't even have to be a magician. If you've got some cool talent or craft or anything you're working on, let me know what you've learned in the past few years, 10 years, 5, whatever. Let me know. You can write in the description, in the comments below if you like. And yeah, let me know what you've learned. Is there anything for magicians out there that I've missed as well, perhaps? You know, is there like a very clear point that I've missed as well? Let me know. And yeah, guys, I'm going to call that a day for this episode. But I really appreciate you guys coming this far to watch and listen. I will be back same time next week, people. Same time next week. And yeah, so guys, this has been your boy Ricky2ra. Peace, stay strong, and remember, always follow your dreams.